All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk Openly. My name is Jac, and I'm joined here by my good friend and newly refuged Vajra brother, Daniel.
Hello.
And we are so delighted tonight to have on the show as our guest, Marie Gillies, who has been a student of Lama Jinpa at Lions Roar Dharma Center since 2008. She took refuge in 2011. And we're going to be asking her a little bit tonight about, her life experiences and also about her experience with the practice of Tonglen. So I'm really, really excited to just chat with you, Marie, and get to know you a little bit more. So welcome on the show.
Yay, this will be fun. I haven't gotten much of a chance to chat with you and then you moved up to Washington, and of course Daniel joined, and then I moved away. So this is fantastic. I really, this is like the best thing, having all this online stuff. It's just so nice that, as we have to move away, we can still stay connected.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's really like I moved May of 2020, right, away from Sacramento. And so it's really been awesome to have this connection maintained. Yeah, it's transformed my life.
Yep. It's been a huge thing for me. So it's like having this real global dharma.
Yeah,
it's one of the few times that people are super grateful for technology. Oftentimes we're cursing it for failing us, but in this instance, for sure, it's brought all of us together. And I even for me, so even though I'm in Sacramento, I'm lucky enough to be close to the temple. During the COVID crisis, like when everything was locked down, I was really, really grateful that the Zoom, the practices stayed alive on Zoom.
Well, and that was the amazing thing, because it was so funny, because we had been talking, just on and off for a long time about, we really should, explore going online and thinking about that. And then, boy, COVID gave us all a swift kick in the pants and got us going on that. And in the end, it's been wonderful. I just think everybody needs to hear Lama's teachings. So I'm so glad it's so much more available to everyone.
Yeah, the mandala is widening.
Exactly.
It's really entered into another dimension.
It's true.
Yeah. Oh, multi-dimensional mandala. Yes.
I bet you've got a lot of stories, Maria. I can't believe. So you took refuge back in 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you've been kicking around this place since before that. Studying with Lama Jinpa. How did you come to the Dharma?
Well, I for a long time, before I really understood anything, I used to call myself an accidental Buddhist. Now I realize that there are no accidents. But I had actually no intention of becoming a Buddhist. I had kind of shelved like my spiritual seeking. I just hadn't really found anything that felt like a good fit, and had actually met American Buddhists previously. I worked for many years in the book trade, so you meet a lot of interesting people, and of course you're selling books and stuff. So and just meeting people, and just was like, maybe this isn't for me either. And so I kind of stuck with doing I'm half Cree, so I did some sweat lodges and stuff like that, but was really kind of not on much of a spiritual path at that point at all. And I was what did happen was I ended up getting a job in the medical field, and everything started falling apart. I worked for Tower, Tower Records and Books. You might remember Tower. And when Tower shut down, of course, we all went off to the four winds. And I just got into a field that, I thought this will be great. I'll be helping people and stuff. But what I did not realize, what none of us realized at the time, was that I'm autistic. And while the bookstore, books being my special interest, and, you know, being a passion of mine, it was great. It was a great fit. And there's a much wider, you know, leeway for personalities and stuff. The medical field wasn't a good fit that way. And even though I was like really, really, really good at my job, I mean, like the doctors loved me, the patients loved me. I got like on this fast track promotion into their training department. So I was actually the person training all of the new frontline employees coming in, you know, in like doing everything, all those nice gals you talk at the front talk to at the front counter, deal with your insurance and everything. That's who I was training, and it was killing me. I was losing my mind, like quite literally losing my mind. And I had struggled, you know, lifelong with depression and anxiety, and just struggled in general because, again, undiagnosed, and just was like kind of lost in this world I just did not understand it and have a framework for, and was on the verge of losing my job. And so it was strongly suggested that I take advantage of my EAP benefits and find a counselor. And so I went on the website and I looked for someone with weekend and evening hours, and there was Stephen Walker. And so basically at the time, I picked him off a website because he had weekend and evening hours, and I knew absolutely nothing about him. And then what's really amusing is, again, lost in the woods, kind of clueless, not always picking up on all of the subtle hints that are going on around me. And it took about 2 years for me to kind of like figure out that, you know, he's Buddhist and he's a big deal. It was really funny because, you know, he and I would be talking and it was like working, and I'm like, this is amazing. He is the most amazing therapist I've ever been to. And I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but it also makes sense. And it was really funny because he'd be, every once in a while, he'd be like, hey, have you ever looked at my website? You know, meaning Middle Way Health. And I'm like, no, you know, I don't have a computer at home, and I only have a half-hour lunch at work, and I really don't like to spend time online. And I would make excuses. And just every like other month or so, have you looked at my website? Like, nah. Finally one day, I mean, and like this is like for my first recollection of him, like really being very directly my Lama. Because one day he just kind of leans forward in a therapy session. He goes, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm like, yes. He goes, could you just take like 5 minutes of your precious lunch hour and look at my website? And I was like, I'll do that tomorrow.
I love
the next, but you know, it was one of those things where there's like that connection, right? Like any other therapist who did something like that, I would have been like, who the hell is this person? But I did it because there is that connection already. Even though I didn't know it, he knew it. He knew he was my teacher long before I had a clue. So of course I go on the website the next day and I'm like, I'm looking through the website, I'm reading the article on the Sacramento Bee, and I'm like, I go back the next week and I'm like, you're a Buddhist. And he's like looking around at all the stuff in his office. He's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and I start coming to Lions Roar. He goes, we'll talk about it.
That is so fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, he and I, but it was good, you know, because it's very classical. You know, they tell you, you know, before you take refuge, before you take the plunge, check out your teacher, right? Make sure they're legit. Make sure that they're the real deal. Make sure they aren't just, you know, talking, and make sure that what they're doing is not going to be a waste of both your times, right? And even by then, even before I was Buddhist, even before I had any sort of practice, the changes had started happening. And he had actually, was doing a very informal kind of meditation where there was one day where he just said, I need you to sit still every day for 20 minutes. That's it. Just sit still and breathe. And that was the start of my meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not even labeled as meditation, but you just need to sit down for
Yeah.
20 minutes and breathe. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I need you to do. Yeah. And what transformations did you start to notice when you picked up that practice?
Oh gosh, it's taken many years.
Sure.
I probably think the biggest thing immediately was that I'm very fortunate in that for some reason it clicked very strongly, so that I've been able to keep up with the practice consistently. And there have been times where I've been struggling more, where I haven't been as consistent, like in the past. And now it's like getting out of bed or eating breakfast, or, it's just something that is so ingrained into the structure of my life
It's just
that
what you do.
it's just what you do. So I think that was the immediate thing of the willingness to recognize that something was off and to go, okay, I'll try this. And then over time, putting together what he was saying, in our therapy sessions, and eventually darshan, and, going to his teachings and putting that all together. So, and it ended up being an amazing fit. In the past, I've also been, I think you and I have talked about this a little bit, Jac, where I was a peace activist and anti-nuclear activist, and, in the early 80s, before there was the internet and everything, just kind of running around with, people from Earth First and going in and like taking photos of illegal mining operations and just doing all that stuff. And, having those values of knowing that, things were off kilter, and not only wanting them to change, but wanting to alleviate the suffering that I was seeing just everywhere. And had always had like a sense of frustration because I just didn't feel like there was a way for me as a person to make an impact. I'm not a fancy person. I don't have an education. I don't, it's just like, how can I make a difference? And then the extraordinary understanding that, this Buddhist practice is the way to do it. And really finding, and then beyond, doing shamatha, shamatha vipassana, on the cushion. For me, I think Tonglen was a good fit as an activist because it isn't quite so like in here, siloed in here. It's you're taking an action where you are actually turning your energy outward and trying to alleviate that suffering directly. So.
Yeah, and
I was just going to say, I'm a little curious. I know, I've never identified in any way as like an activist, right? But I'm always inspired by people who have that kind of passion. And for people that maybe don't see the direct relationship between Buddhism, meditation practices, and activism, could you maybe speak to that, like just a little bit more? Like, what's the relationship? How is it that this is the key?
I think that for a lot of activists, I mean, certainly not all of them, people have different motivations, but for a lot of activists, um, I think that you get involved as a reaction to seeing suffering, suffering in the biosphere, suffering in the animal realm, suffering in the human realm, and the desire to just have some sort of an impact, some sort of change to that. That was really my motivation. It was like, these things are wrong. I'm seeing, people being, poisoned by uranium tailings, or I'm, seeing people, being decimated by war in Central and South America, and, our activities there as a nation. So it was very much, driven by that sense of seeing suffering, and feeling that it was just like not acceptable, and I have to do something, anything.
I really appreciate you talking about this, because, I also came to Buddhism with, a long-standing activist background. And I remember that exact same, motivation, where it's like, someone, all of us have to do something about it.
Exactly.
And it was just that really intense, like I felt this intensity all the time driving me. And in a way that, at times led to a lot of burnout, a lot of pain, a lot of disrupted relationships. And yeah, I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit in your experience, how, just sometimes the way that we enter into, helping or wanting to help can oftentimes lead to, maybe even more harm, maybe more suffering at times.
Well, and I think that part of that is a factor of, because I experienced that as well. And I think part of that is a factor of, being involved in these movements, but without a foundation to it, right? So you're always like, you're doing this stuff, but it's like, what impact am I actually having? What is this actually doing? And like, how much more can I do so it'll actually seem like it's having an impact? And I think that you end up kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole of like, well, if I do this, or if I do more, or if I do it all the time, or if I'm, more demanding of other people, maybe they'll respond. And in the end, it just doesn't work. It just burns you out. And so I went through actually a period where I was very much just kind of like trying to take care of the people around me, friends, family, and went through a real lull in that. Was still doing, was still politically involved, and still working with Occupy and stuff like that, but not, quite as involved as before. And then I think Buddhism has helped me find a better balance and more effective way to approach things.
Well, Mama always, brings up that wonderful little phrase of, as bodhisattvas in training, we give 49%, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love that so much. And 49%, when you think about it, is quite a lot.
It's a lot,
right? But then we have the 51% for ourselves and for our practice, our individual training, because otherwise, yeah, we're just going to keel over.
Well, and that's what, I think that's a really good thing to bring up, because one of the things that I've seen people kind of go a little bit awry with, like Tonglen, is Daniel can tell you, I always tell people, like, just short little periods, right? Just because it's very active, it's very intense. And so just, shamatha, then Tonglen, then shamatha. Sometimes I do shamatha, Tonglen, and then something like Mahamudra. But definitely shamatha, Tonglen, shamatha, just 6-minute periods. And I've actually had people who had come through the group, come to me later and go, oh, I can't do Tonglen anymore. It was making me sick. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Oh, I was trying to do it for an hour. It's like, well, it's like, and they were just had convinced themselves, oh no, I just can't do this practice. And it's like, well, just do it a little bit. So, and that actually is the same instruction the Dalai Lama gives in short periods. So
it's potent.
it is, it's profound. And but it's also, I feel, very different than, shamatha vipassana, because you really are doing this exchange, and it takes a lot of internal energy.
I think I credit Tonglen with sort of the most marked, most rapid transformation, right? Like where I could actually,
I agree with that.
I could see, so like for sure, shamatha as well, the other meditative practices, I'm not saying that they're definitely transformational, but it's sort of a little bit slower acting, whereas for me, Tonglen can be almost immediate, like if you want to talk about a lightning type of an approach, especially to developing compassion, right?
Exactly.
And sort of loosening this sort of me-I grip. It is, that's what I mean by potent. It's the transformative properties of this practice are just outrageous. I don't know.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because that's the point.
Yeah.
And you're right, like shamatha vipassana it's like the foundation, right? You build this very stable foundation. But Tonglen is really kind of where the rubber meets the road, in a way where, it is a way to, work with our reactions and work with our thoughts and work with the things that arise, and those energies, and to redirect them. And by going through that constant process, it really is. It's the thing that it's like building a healthy habit. It's like why they call it a practice. You pick up the violin every day, eventually something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You
When did you start practicing Tonglen? How far into your path?
I think I probably started in earnest around 2014 or so.
And when
And
did you
then
start the
I think
group?
I started the group probably 2015. It was right around when we moved into the temple. So
Yeah.
it was yeah.
Nice.
That's a good long time. Yeah. Have you noticed, when you were first started working with this practice, were there any difficulties? Were there areas where you felt like you were getting stuck, or where maybe it felt like I don't want to go there? Because sometimes I do that with
because I was really, honestly, at the beginning, I was using this practice to kind of really deal with specific people in my life. I had an abusive childhood, so I was dealing with that. And so, dealing with a lot of like confusion and anger and frustration and fear, and just kind of dealing with a lot of that. So it was interesting because, you're doing this practice and there's all these like really, powerful things that you're dealing with. And to be honest with you, at first, it almost felt like I was just going through the motions, where it's like I'm just sitting here and doing this thing, and picturing this person, and is it really doing anything? But I also knew that the other stuff that I'd done over time had an effect, and that I just kind of really had to trust the process. And the first effect that I noticed from doing Tonglen was that in a way, it changed my relationship with time. By going through the process of, instead of naturally allowing your mind to go to the natural unhealthy reaction, right? You know, that like 99.9% of our reactions, you know, on our level are unhealthy, right? They're just instantaneous, you know, monkey mind reactions. And by giving yourself an opportunity to build a habit of doing something different, of instead of letting that reaction arise and getting involved in that, of instead just, as Lama says, mixing it with bodhicitta, right? With that wish for other people to awaken. Eventually, over time, I found that my reactions weren't as fast. And then after that time period stretches. And that gap, right? That little gap that develops, that's where the bodhicitta goes. And as that gap widens, there's more room. And as there's more bodhicitta, my belief is eventually the reaction that is the reaction, bodhicitta.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And in the practices of Tonglen that I've done before and with you and Venerable Tenzin Choki when she was in Sacramento for the Cultivating Compassion workshop, I love the idea of just kind of holding bodhicitta at my heart, just like a representation of bodhicitta. And then, you know, through the process of, you know, sending someone suffering through that bodhicitta at my heart, it transforms it. And I love this, especially when thinking about, people that I'm unhappy with, or, you know, enemies, where I'm able to, you know, just imagine that whatever it is that I'm angry at, bodhicitta can handle it, you know, so much. I can't handle it on my own, you know, because I've got all my kind of delusions and junk up there. But if I just have even just an ounce, that's what I imagine, kind of just this little ounce of bodhicitta at my heart, it can totally transform the whole world, is what I kind of visualize.
Well, and the great thing is that little tiny bit of bodhicitta, just through the process of that willingness, right, to bring in that suffering and to mix it with bodhicitta, it makes it more, it expands it. So
yeah, and it transforms my mind. It changes how I see the whole situation and the person that I'm frustrated with, which is really the magic part of it, I believe.
Well, and that's the whole idea behind Tonglen, is that we're replacing harmful habits with positive habits. And we're replacing, you know, our ignorant reactions with a more measured, you know, reaction. And, you know, really remembering that, you know, especially when we're working with people, like specific people, you know, really kind of bringing to the idea that, you know, we've literally, every single being has been our mother at some point, you know, throughout limitless time. And to be willing to, you know, be up to the challenge of holding that tenderness, right? Instead of the anger or, you know, whatever it is you're feeling towards that person, and being able to just, you know, replace it with the tenderness that you would feel, you know, for your mother. And that kind of almost radical acceptance of, you know, no, this is really what it is. It's not this other thing. And it's it really is transformative. It changes, the way you move through the world. Lama often talks about, inner, outer, inner secret, right? And I have noticed in myself, just outwardly, I just interact with people differently. And I am less reactive. One of the off things about being autistic is that you're kind of constantly bombarded by sensory input, and it's very frustrating, and it leads to dysregulation. And it's helped me with that, which is an added benefit. That wasn't the goal, but it's even helped me with that, which is kind of miraculous because it's something that, all autistics struggle with. And then, again, the inner effects has been this, change in the relationship to time, and then change in my relationship to those reactions, and of being able to make a choice, instead of just like that, things just happen internally, being able to make a choice about how to approach things. So, like even in this home buying process, as telling Daniel, being able to show up for the various people involved who, them, this is just their job. It's just like another thing they're doing. To me, it's like super important, right? But having to remember that, these are people who they're just doing their best, and they have their own suffering in their lives. And, by showing up in a way that for them is easy and supportive and kind and lifts them up, makes everything easier. So, when you're dealing with, patients with emotional difficulties, one of the measures that is used is like, is the patient able to be kind? Can the patient demonstrate kindness, right? So I think just if we're able to consistently turn towards, being kinder in our interactions, that's kind of an outer inner thing that works together. So it's of course, the goal of this practice isn't to become a nicer person. It's just one of the benefits.
Totally. Well, and I'm reminded of what Mama has said before about, we're training to become natural.
Right.
Which I really love. And I think that's what Tonglen is doing in a way, is that it's just helping us peel back the layers of affliction and delusion around ourselves and others, where it's just like, no, we're just going to keep coming back to compassion. We're just going to keep on coming back to compassion. And so really just training our minds to that natural state of compassion.
Exactly. And that's, and that is the natural state. And that's why the other state is so uncomfortable, right? And what's funny is we keep running after it because we're used to it, even though it's so uncomfortable. It's funny. And I love that, you mentioned that, because that was something that I emailed Lamala earlier in the week just to kind of let him know how things were going and stuff, and, with the house and everything. And told him it's like, it's amazing because I've, he's always talked to me about, like, because I struggle with communication with other people and working in groups, and just, interactions with, non-autistic people are often just difficult for me. And, he and I have often talked, he said, well, it's like dancing, right? You step in, you step out, and I'm like, well, this is hopeless because I can only dance when I'm drunk. To do that anymore. But it happened, right? And I didn't even know it had happened until I started the process of buying a house. And I was able to see, oh, step in now. Okay, step out. You know, okay, now it's time to lead. Okay, now I'm going to let the other person lead. And always, 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 keeping in mind that that person should come away feeling good and feeling supported and feeling connected and not at odds, and not trying to, you know, even create like any sort of like problems in their mind streams. So it really does work. And you know, it sounds so funny to be talking about it in context of, you know, buying a house or, you know, but again, it's one of those, it's like a beneficial side effect.
It's like the practical aspect of it. And I think it's kind of, it's funny because both of you use the term magical when describing this. And I remember vividly when I was even more delusional than I am now. I remember coming in, Tonglen was one of the first sort of non-shamatha practices that I tried. And I had the benefit of learning from you, Marie, at the temple. So I got to come in and sit with you there. And I actually have a journal where I was journaling what was going on. And I was convinced. I was like, no, this is actually magic. Like, not the kind of, I'm not talking about like personal transformation magic. I had like these experiences where I was like, no, like look, it did something over there, right? Like I can see it did something. And I remember coming in and being like, okay, you're going to tell me now, right? This is magic, isn't it? And you were like, no, no, it's not like that, you know. And I can see it in retrospect that it's not what we sort of traditionally, it's not like some kind of fantasy magic. It's
Right.
It's real natural magic, right? And that when we, especially you talk about the change in your relationship to time, but I notice, you know, the profound effect for me has been the change in relationship to people, to others in general.
Oh yeah.
Not just about my reactivity, but actually the way that I see them and what comes from them, you know. So
oh, absolutely.
some of the biggest like monsters in my life have become nice teachers, right? And I, you know, like they've literally like been transformed into not just neutralized, you know, but taken from being a big, scary, awful, bad monsters, you know, into something that's quite beneficial to me and to others. And what's beautiful is as that changes in me, it just continues to alter that relationship, the dynamic, right? So that is this incredible effect that we have on others through personal transformation. I think,
exactly.
You know, Jac and I were talking about this when they were down here, not just recently, is there's this sort of, and this is what I was sort of getting at with the activism question, is like, what's the relationship there? Is like, if this is the kind of effect that can come from a little bit of practice, you know, that I might do, right? If this is the kind of transformation that's possible between me and however many people I have in my direct circle of influence, that's massive. That's huge, right? And if I can continue to grow and cultivate that bodhicitta, right? If I can continue to work with it, then that can grow even more and
exactly.
grow. And then you begin to see like, oh, this is how I can benefit all sentient beings.
Yep. People get shinier. People get glowier. People
They really do.
become, it's, you see others differently. And I think you also, you know, it's like Jack said, you know, you kind of develop that rhythm and that, you know, that natural feeling of it. It doesn't mean you have to like be buddies with everyone.
No.
And you know, you're still like, there are some people where I must have a boundary, which is this long. And
totally.
which is totally legit. And you can still see them as Buddhists.
Yeah.
and that's the beautiful thing. And it's magic, but it isn't magic.
Right.
It's alchemy, but it is an alchemy that takes place because we've just covered up what we really are with all this other stuff. And you're right, there is a way out, and this is one of them. I think, I don't know if I told the story, you were there, when I told the story of my father and the abuse that I suffered at the hands of my father. My father tried to kill me, and it was just something I needed to deal with, right? He was still in my life. He was still in my family's life, and was huge conflicts, and my father and I ended up being really close towards the end. And it was funny because, this morning when I was like having a frustrated moment, waiting for them to call me back and tell me that things were okay, I was like, I just want to call my dad. So
wow.
You're right. It can take the greatest monster in your life and allow you to see them as your mother. And to be able to extend them that loving kindness that they deserve, and I was able to finally, like, very clearly see, my father's suffering, and be able to see that, that suffering is the same as my own, and that he couldn't do anything about it any more than I could. So, and it's my responsibility to ramp that down for everybody.
I think that's true forgiveness right there, is being able to acknowledge someone else's suffering and not lash back in the face of it. And I'm glad to hear that, you two were able to form a relationship again after all of that trauma. And I think that goes to show just how powerful these practices really are. And, I wonder if maybe you could walk us through a little bit, just what the steps are to Tonglen, and maybe, in a few minutes or so, we could even do
we'll do a little
bit of a
session
together. Great. Yeah.
So I just want to recommend a couple of things. You might have seen this booklet around at Lion's Roar. Highly recommend this. This is something Lama had me put together. And these are the Lojong slogans from Geshe Cheko Yeshi Dorje. And Tonglen is part of this Lojong practice. So this is just basically all of the Lojong slogans, and there's some brief explanations of what they mean. This book, it's called The Kindness of Others. And this is by Geshe Jampa Tekchuk. And this, you may have seen it around at Lion's Roar. This is a great book about Lojong and Tonglen. And it's really lovely. It's from a meditation workshop that he did. And it's, with the appendix, it's 101 pages long. And it is just so helpful in kind of understanding from a Mahayana point of view, what it is, this practice, what is the purpose, what is my mind frame supposed to be, and gives you some guidance in doing the practice. I just really love this book. Lama recommends it a lot. So I just wanted to bring this one up. It's one that I've read this book over and over again because it's so helpful. So,
Nice.
so Tonglen is part of the Lojong mind training, which is really, the purpose of it is really to transform our minds, to become enlightened, to be able to cultivate that, wish for all sentient beings to awaken. So, this is a Mahayana practice. And then, of course, Lama helps us to put a Vajrayana twist onto it so that we can become enlightened in this lifetime, right? And this is really about kind of transforming problems into happiness, because all of our problems really are coming from, in here. And by doing this Tonglen practice, it really does help transform that. So essentially, we're taking on the suffering of other beings and then offering them our happiness instead. And very simply, and you can, and I actually, Daniel knows this, I recommend, all of the teachers recommend that we start with Tonglen for ourselves. We are usually harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else. And we have to take care of ourselves, right? Only give 49%. So you have to be able to assuage your own suffering as well. So, and just very briefly, again, generally when I do Tonglen, I do 6 minutes of shamatha just for stabilization. And then as you begin the Tonglen session, you can visualize, the object, the other person, or yourself. And it doesn't have to be like a completely solid image, just a felt sense, of that individual in front of you. And then, recognize that, they're suffering. You don't need to get into a narrative. And that can be someone who you're angry at, someone you're frustrated with, someone you're head over heels in love with, someone you're neutral about. You can do this for yourself or all beings. All of those individuals are suffering. And all of those individuals will need to learn to mediate our reactions, right, in order to be more effective. So you visualize this person, and then as you breathe in, you're visualizing this. You can visualize like this dark city smoke, right, coming from them, maybe from all of their pores or pouring out of their nose and mouth, and it's coming to you, and you're breathing it in, right, and you can take it in through your nose and mouth. Breathe, take it in through all of your pores. And as you're breathing in this dark city cloud of suffering, negative karma, it comes in and it mixes with, bodhicitta, your wish for that individual and all sentient beings to awaken and to be able to be aware of their Buddha nature and be freed, liberated completely from samsara and from this wheel of suffering. So you breathe in that black smoke and you recognize, that they were your mother and they deserve loving kindness, and you wish for them to obtain enlightenment, and you exhale this beautiful golden cloud of nectar. So this beautiful mist, this golden mist goes and envelops them, and then they breathe it in, and they take it in through all of their hair pores. And then you inhale, and you inhale their suffering again. And you do that process with every breath for 6 minutes. Do you want to give it a little shot?
Before we give it a little shot, I just, would you be willing to also describe the diamond?
Sure.
Thank you.
So what I just described is a really kind of typical Mahayana approach to Tonglen. It's one that has been really popularized very much by, like her name escapes me. I can't even understand why.
Was it Trungpa Rinpoche?
No, not Trungpa Rinpoche. She's a nun who was one of
Oh,
his.
Pema Chodron?
Yeah, Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron. Her name just slipped my mind. Very much popularized by her. Lama has described to me in personal teachings um, a form of Tonglen. He likes to call it tough Tonglen, and it's a much more Vajrayana version. And I really like it because, well, you'll see, it's very different. So in the other visualization, when you're breathing in this smoke and you're exhaling this golden mist, in the Vajrayana version, what you're doing is you're recognizing that all of us, again, we're exchanging ourselves for others. We're recognizing that we are the same, and we all have this dark coal in our center, right? This dark center of negative karma, of obscuration, and it's polluted and dirty. And so this coal is at our center, and it's really just like blocking everything up. And so Lama says that what we do is, in this visualization, we picture a black iron arrow flying from that other person, just a huge black iron arrow flying from that other person, and it strikes you right in that coal. And what happens when a coal is put under, crushing pressure, it becomes a diamond. And that diamond is bodhicitta and wisdom and enlightenment. And so that arrow comes, that arrow of suffering and obscuration comes and crushes your core of suffering and obscuration, and it transforms it into wisdom. And then you just give that to the other person. So you're giving them all of your positive karma, all of your realizations, with a big R and a little r, all of your wealth of every kind, and offering that to them in the form of that time.
And I love how, yeah, thank you. That one really, I think, helps me with the self-centered kind of mind.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, right,
Yeah.
of this practice. The ultimate goal is we are retraining our minds away from self-cherishing. And it's just something where you just have to constantly do it. It was funny, someone in one of the online groups I'm in was saying, it just feels like I'm gaslighting myself into submission. It's like, if there was no bodhicitta, if there was no enlightenment, then yes, I would agree with that. But since there is bodhicitta and enlightenment, we aren't going to go down that nihilistic road.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, well, yeah, should we try a few minutes?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Awesome.
So just, take your seat and, just begin your regular breathing for meditation, just slow and steady. And take a moment to just kind of let things roll to a stop. And as you breathe, just take like 7 breaths. And then on the 8th one, begin your Tonglen practice. So how was that?
Man, every time it's just so beautiful. And I just feel such a new appreciation for people who are in my life all the time, who I just pass by sometimes and forget that they're even there, or that they're even a human. I think
I always think about that, like the people that I'm neutral about.
Yes.
Like I can't wait until the day when I'm enlightened and I don't do that. Like it's one of the things that, like, it troubles me.
Totally. Yeah. I honestly think that the neutral people that's sometimes where I've got the most juice, because it's like, oh man, there's a whole world of beings that I'm just not even thinking about, and they're all beautiful, they're all suffering, they all deserve
Right.
compassion, and so it's just like my heart just opens when I think about that.
And that's one of the beautiful things about this practice. I can guarantee that over time, doing this practice, I used to feel very separated from other beings. I felt connected to the world, and animals and stuff, but not so much other people. It has helped me to integrate all of that more, and really helped me develop an appreciation for our interconnectedness and interdependence, but also just I'm able to connect in ways, just very practical ways that I wasn't able to before. And I guarantee that over time, all of that becomes easier, because you just are making different choices in how you're reacting and viewing other people. So it really is beautiful.
Yeah, we come to treasure people more.
Exactly. And actually do it, not just talk about it. That's the amazing part. It's like no longer just feeling like you're just kind of going through the motions, but it's really like dwelling within you. My friends,
That's
Wow.
it's been
beautiful.
lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and earlier you said how you want every interaction, if possible, to leave the other person, feeling good. And I can promise you that you've made me feel really good.
Oh, I'm
Um,
glad.
I feel rejuvenated and just excited.
Oh, I'm so glad. I think this is like so important. This is, the Sangha jewel is, it's just so important to make these connections and maintain them. And I will try to come more often and tune in. I can't always make it because sometimes I'm 58. I get pretty sleepy at 7 sometimes, but
I get it.
but no, and it actually, wow, that's right. It's going to be really different. Well, maybe I'll just do it from bed in Oklahoma.
There you go. And there's also an opportunity for us to join you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see you there.
Right.
It's just, yeah, I think it's a really important practice.
And I know it's coming up this Friday.
Third Friday of every month.
Third Friday of every month at 7 p.m. Pacific
6
time.
p.m.
6 p.m. Sorry. 6
Yeah.
p.m.
And that might be changing because, yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be in a total different time zone.
All right. We'll
But
roll
for
with
now,
it.
it's the
Yeah.
third Friday of every month. So
I
and you
look
can check the
forward to
website,
joining
everyone.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Marie.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you
Your arrow
guys
definitely found
soon.
its mark here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You
See
too, you guys. Be well.
Hey, everybody. Hi,
Bye.
Jack.